Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week our title is an Evangelion and a Mickey reference, so it has zero audience.
Hello.
Hi,
Here we are.
we're back.
My name is Ravi.
And I'm Micah, and we're recording this episode again, and I want to die.
I'm honestly shocked that this hasn't happened sooner. We recorded this episode once already and had audio troubles.
I swear
Quote,
I swear
unquote.
this has happened once before
Really?
on the podcast.
Or we've just lost an episode?
Yeah, I think we've redone an episode before.
That could be, yeah.
So anyway, our other episode was supernatural and funny and good, and now this one's going to be trash.
No.
Because we've talked about it already.
Don't speak it into existence, Micah. This will be just as good as our Lost episode.
The Lost, yeah, it's a true Lost media now, and by Lost, it never existed.
It never existed.
we hit the record button on our brand new recorder improperly, and it recorded none of our hour long episodes.
It was like an hour. Yeah, it was over an hour.
It was probably
honestly.
over an hour, and we were just talking about like our subject, not our extra stuff, which is not usually the case. But anyway, we have kind of a crazy title like today.
We have a crazy spiel as our intro, and we also have kind of a weird subject for the episode.
The subject.
Yes.
But yeah, so our title, as you may have been able to tell, is not something that actually exists. There's no thing
true.
called Mickey's. What do you have it as?
I have Mickey 2.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Christmas. That's the title.
Which is a fun little Evangelion reference for you Evangelion fans out there. But it's because we're talking about Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas and Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. We figured since they're both relatively short, we could talk about them all in one little fun Christmas segment.
Exactly. I think it was the folly of our ambition that brought down our first recording.
But it was a good recording, so I disagree.
We gave into our podcasting hubris.
We did.
And it brought about our doom. But yeah, let's go over what the people need to know about both films.
Let's. Alright, so again we're talking about Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, which is a 1999 film. We're not going to do all of the facts that we normally would for these, since we're talking about two, and there's also like a ton of directors and writers, so we're just going to do a brief flyover. But Once Upon a Christmas is directed by Toby Shelton, Alex Mann, June Falkenstein, I don't know, Bill Spears, Bradley Raymond. It's written by Charlie Cohen, Tom Nance, Thomas Hart, Richard Cray, Carter Crocker, Eddie Guzlian, Temple Matthews, and Scott Gordon. Lots of writers. Cast features Jim Cummings, Greg Berger, Jeff Bennett, Tony Alzamo, Pat Musick, Corey Burton, and many, many more.
Yeah, a few other people. I actually went through all the trouble of listing the whole cast. Since it's a vocal cast, it's pretty limited for the whole film. But
that still was only about half of them.
Yeah.
But what else are we talking about, Ravi?
We're also talking about Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, which is a 2004 film directed by Matthew O'Callaghan, Carol Holliday, Theresa Cullen, and it was written by James Patrick Stereau, Jim Bernstein, Michael Shipley, Jim Peranto, Shirley Pierce, Chad Fivash, Matt O'Callaghan. Wait, is he listed twice? Oh no, he was one of the directors.
Yeah.
I'm losing it here. Bob Roth, Theresa Pettengill, Peggy Holmes, Colin Goldman, and Bill Motz. And a couple of the people in the movie are Tony Anselmo, Russie Taylor, Jeff Bennett, Alan Young, and Chuck McCain.
Chuck McCain.
McCann. But yeah, if you
boy
recognize any of those names, congratulations. You're a more in-depth Disney historian than I am.
Right, we're going into the depths of Disney by depths like the 90s and early 2000s.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of obscurity, not too many people probably know about these.
But yeah, the only other thing you guys really need to know about these is they are, of course, both anthology films.
Yes.
The first one containing 3 segments, and the second one containing 5 segments.
Wow.
Their runtimes are also 66 and 68 minutes, respectively. So...
Very informative, wow.
I just have that off the top of my head. It's almost like we recorded these before.
Whoa, that's crazy. But yeah, let's get into what we actually thought of the films.
Let's. So we're going to do things a little differently this episode because they're anthology films. So instead of talking about all of one and then kind of being and then there's also this, we're going to just break down each individual segment itself. We're going to talk about them one segment at a time. That's 8 total segments, and we're going to hopefully not spend too much time on them.
Yes, that is the hope.
But what do we start with, Remy?
We're starting with the first segment of Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, Donald Duck Stuck on Christmas.
Stuck on Christmas. Which, as you mentioned previously when we recorded this episode, it's kind of interesting that Donald is the titular character.
It's not really about him. It's about Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah, definitely about Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But man, this is such a Christmas classic for me. This is where it's at. This is peak Christmas fiction.
Peak Christmas fiction.
It's
time loop movies, Micah?
No, I'm not usually a big fan of time loop movies, which is one of the things I think is actually really neat about this, is that it pulls off, and it's about 20-minute runtime, about, honestly, 22-minute runtime.
Yeah.
Doing kind of a time loop story in a way that perfectly times it out of not being, annoying.
It's almost too long.
It's almost too long. It's so close, but it doesn't. And it maintains that by being really consistently funny, having a nice blend of sincerity and comedy, and just, I don't know, being good. What do you think of this, Remy?
I don't know, yeah. I mentioned the first time we recorded this. I don't know why I felt the need to specify, but that this is...
for all you people who
for all the people who listen to the episode that doesn't exist. I mentioned that this is my favorite segment of probably either movie, and it's the one that immediately jumps to my mind when someone mentions this movie.
Exactly.
It's, I think, the most memorable. It's one of the funnier ones, probably one of the funniest ones
for sure
of the bunch. Huey and Dewey and Louie are really fun here. I mean, I've seen my fair share of DuckTales at this point, but they maintain their level of charm that isn't there in some of the older Disney shorts that I've seen them in.
Yeah, I was about to say, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are very interesting characters. Having seen quite a bit of the old DuckTales and almost all of the new DuckTales.
DuckTales reboot, baby.
Yeah. I feel like I know the Huey, Dewey, and Louie pretty well as seeing them in a lot of shorts.
Yeah.
And they're always kind of interesting characters in the way that they get approached, but really always the best thing about them in this kind of setting, which honestly is why I think the new DuckTales kind of suffers a little bit, because it shies away from this a lot, is kind of having Huey, Dewey, and Louie constantly be under some kind of father or mentor figure, whether that be Donald in this instance or Scrooge mainly in DuckTales. But their dynamics work really well with kind of a parental figure paired with them.
Yeah.
And that's where this short really lets Donald shine too.
Right. Dude, almost all of Donald's bits in this are great.
Yeah, I was about to say, it does this really interesting thing, because I'm not usually the biggest Donald Duck fan. Donald has never been my thing.
When you can understand what he's actually saying.
I've never even struggled with that much. I've just never found him that particularly funny. But the times that I do find him funny are often whenever he's paired with Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah.
Because it adds kind of a second dimension to Donald's character. He's no longer just he's angry. Oh, isn't that crazy? He's angry.
It gives him a thing to stand for.
He has this real strong sense of sincerity to his actions. It gives him a much stronger sense of morals, and it allows his comedy, whenever he does get angry or whenever things happen to him, to be, in my opinion, a lot funnier.
Yeah. No, I would tend to agree.
There's some really just like there's some great physical comedy in this, which I know is kind of like old Disney's thing.
Yeah.
But they're like even just that first scene of this, like when they come down and like Donald gets absolutely wasted.
The pancakes.
Yeah, the pancakes is just really funny. And they pull that off. Like that's not always something that's gonna be funny, and it's funny like every time. And they do they do a really interesting thing with the different time loops of like it really feels like they sat down and just came up with like, oh, but what if this happened this time, and just like threw out a bunch of funny physical comedy bits that evolve every time loop, which really helps. Like, I don't know, bring it up. I know
it sells it.
I know that's common practice in time loops, like slightly changing things to keep it funny.
Yeah.
But it just sells it a lot more in this kind of circumstance with this animation and actual, like, physical comedy chops.
Yeah, I think they selected just the right amount of events to, like, keep it fresh without it feeling like they're missing something for something that's this short. Like, they were breezing over something with the runtime.
Yeah, you hit all the important beats.
Exactly, yeah. It's impressive. I
also
applaud it.
Yeah, I'll also shout out the actual like emotional core of the short is also pretty good.
Yeah,
like it's not outstanding.
I'm not like shedding a tear
I
or anything.
have a big problem with a lot of short films and the way they pull off their like emotional cores. But this is hardly a short. Like this is 22 minutes. This is TV show episode length.
Yeah,
and it pulls off a pretty solid one-off TV show episode like core. You feel like there's a genuine arc, even if it is like a little bit rushed through.
It is, around the middle.
I think that comes with every time loop movie, because in order to do like a character look in a time loop, like it's just too complicated to try and parse all of that in a way that's interesting.
Yeah.
So instead you can just kind of have them be like, oh my gosh, let's change our ways.
Yeah. No, I think generally, like, it works well as just, like, this heartwarming conclusion. Like, its little, like, perfect Christmas thing at the end is actually pretty sweet.
Yeah, I was about to say, and again, it balances its tone well enough that there are, like, big, like, breaking of Donald's spirit.
Oh my gosh, I love that shot.
When he's, like, dying under the Christmas tree, he can't even get mad. He's just, like, he's so sad.
And they do like the slow zoom out from it.
It's both sincere, because you see, especially if you've watched it before and you know what's in his card and everything.
Yeah,
like you very much like, oh, but he just loves them. And then it's also pretty funny too. Like that shot is genuinely funny. And same thing goes with stuff like the whole Scrooge piano thing with the carols. When the piano gets destroyed, he's like, gosh. Oh no, my carols.
My carols.
And it's genuinely like a funny moment, but then like at the same time I think it is heartwarming when we see like them have the carols and just simple stuff like that it just pulls off really well. This isn't like mind-blowing stuff.
No.
But I think it's very solid for this kind of film.
Yeah, it probably remains my favorite like short of any of these.
Yeah,
but
definitely same. I mean, either way, I'm probably extremely nostalgia ridden. Like this is like a quintessential Christmas childhood movie for me. So, you know, I'll love it no matter what. Probably.
Yeah, do with that what you will.
But I think it's genuinely solid. I also wanted to throw out that we were going to rate these.
Yes.
The individual segments as well as the total movie. And if I was to rate this segment, I would give it a 4 out of 5.
I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid. I really enjoy it. It's very Christmassy to me. Again, I'll throw this out here as like one final thing before we move on. Like this is to kind of show how much this is like a Christmas thing for me. When I was making a Christmas video on the Robert Zemeckis Christmas Carol on my channel, when I just wanted like a Christmas ambiance shot that I felt that like was like, oh yeah, that's Christmas.
Yeah.
I used to shot from this segment. So like it was completely unrelated, but that's just like, this is Christmas for me.
Very nice.
But moving on, for our second segment, we have A Very Goofy Christmas.
Whoa. What makes it so goofy, Mike? I wonder.
Perhaps that it stars lovable comedic character Goofy.
Well.
And his son Max.
Who would have thought it?
And I'm sure they'll get up to crazy comedy hijinks, and there won't be any, like, emotionally devastating things happening in this.
I'm sure this won't be emotionally scarring at all.
where Goofy slowly loses his will to live.
Exactly.
As Max cold-heartedly breaks him bit by bit.
Yeah, very Goofy Christmas. It's great.
No, it is actually genuinely really good.
Yeah.
There's... Like, Goofy's just a classic, and there's so much in this that really accentuates his character as well.
Yeah.
In a very similar way to, like I mentioned with Donald, Goofy is another character. Well, in my opinion, he stands very much on his own. Like, there are so many Goofy shorts that are just Goofy. Literally just Goofy.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. He's one of the best Disney characters, if not the best Disney character in terms of classics.
Yeah. I would tend to agree.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
But giving, like, anytime we have Max with him, it does the same kind of thing as Donald.
Yeah, it's the same thing you mentioned before.
Yeah, it gives him, like, so much more depth, and you, again, get that very strong sense of heart from Goofy, especially if you've watched, like, a Goofy movie or an extremely Goofy movie.
Yeah. And this pulls it off just as well as both of those do, I think.
Oh, yeah.
They're dynamic generally. Like, we still get a bunch of fun slapstick bits, especially near the beginning with Goofy. But you also get, again, like you said, a good sense of, like, emotional stakes along with all of the stuff that's happening.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, like, really quotable lines and really memorable bits, especially, like you mentioned in the opening segment, when we have, like, Max wants to mail a letter to Santa.
His letter to Santa.
And he misses the mail truck, so him and Goofy go, like, chasing off after the mail truck and get lost in the mall trying to get through.
Yep.
Or at least Goofy does, as Max goes around. And it's, like, this whole big thing, and there's just so many great lines and stuff there. Like, one that we quote all the time, just, like, not even related to Christmas. In our family, we'll do the whole, better slow her down before we break the sound barrier. Which is, like, I don't know. It's a very funny line.
They're just flying on a bicycle,
they're, like, zooming on a bicycle. And the whole, like, there's a crazy person on the ornament. There's just great stuff in here.
Yeah, especially that opening set piece of them, like, chasing down the mailman is so great. And, like, the rest of the short is really solid as well. It's not quite as, like, comedically focused since we get more into, like, Max grappling with
I was about to say the rest of the plot kind of is Pete tells Max after they get back from their mall escapade that Santa isn't real.
Exactly.
And Max has kind of an existential crisis, and in his, like, attempt to see if Santa is real, then Goofy doesn't think Santa's real anymore, and then by the end they both find out that Santa really was real.
All along.
All along. All wrong. Yeah.
Well,
I would say, like, there is, like, a little bit of an, like, it's not an issue, but just kind of a meh part of the big emotional core, because I think there are definitely moments where it works really well. And especially when they're trying to show, like, why Goofy wants to believe so strongly in Santa.
Yeah.
And, like, the spirit of giving and everything.
Exactly.
But it is kind of, at a certain point, a little, like, brutal to watch how this plays out. Like, genuinely. It's, like, Max is just trying so hard to prove that Santa doesn't exist, and Goofy's trying so hard to prove that he does, and they just, like, get, like, annoyed and mad and depressed.
Right. No, it is kind of, like, that whole middle chunk is very, like, draining to watch almost.
Yeah, it's not, again, these are very short.
It's not all that, but
so it's always a plus when you have something like this. I know movies often fall into this where they'll get something like this and they'll think, oh, this is really good drama, and they forget to actually make it, like, interesting to watch, and it just becomes this kind of, like, annoying, like, oh my gosh, stop, like, fighting and getting mad and getting sad at each other.
Yeah.
But luckily this doesn't really have much time to waste on that.
Yeah, no, and I think the, like, true meaning of Christmas thing that they bring up by the end, you know, the whole point of the short is actually really sweet, and it more so than the first one. I think its moral, quote unquote, is a really valuable and sweet one.
Yeah, I was about to say, and it's a lot more tangible of a message than the first one,
exactly.
Especially to, like, childhood me. I always took more away from this one, but liked the first one better.
Yeah.
But again, This still is really funny. I love Max and Goofy so much.
Yeah.
They're easily some of my favorites. I wish we had more Max and Goofy. We really have like Goof Troop and then the two movies.
The two movies and apparently this as well.
Well, and of course like a bunch of shorts
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
But that's really it in terms of like Max and Goofy stuff out there.
That is true.
But yeah, if I was to rate a very goofy Christmas, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5.
I think I would give this one the same as the first one, about a 3 out of 5. I think it's really good. I don't think it's like extraordinary or anything. It has a couple of like weird scenes that don't hit quite right,
Yeah.
but generally I love its like takeaway, and I think it's funny. So
Yeah, it's
gets
very
a thumbs
memorable.
up from me
A
as well.
solid, and again, a solid like encapsulation of like very Christmas feeling for me.
Exactly, yeah.
But what do we have next, Remy?
The next one is Mickey and Minnie's Gift of the Magi. It's the last segment.
and the worst segment.
It is the worst one.
It's just kind of boring.
That really is its biggest defense, I think. Like, because I do admire it for some of its jokes. Like, it has some good bits once in a while.
Like very rarely.
I think I like its premise generally, but I think just, yeah, its execution often comes off kind of dry or just generally uninteresting for a majority of the runtime.
Yeah, like
Which is a shame.
Honestly, The Gift of Magi has never been a story that like I really like. And I understand like the moral and what it's going for.
I think in
and
a literary
when it-
fashion, like
yeah.
in the context of a book or a short story, it would hit a lot better
I was
because
about to
it's
say,
not.
in a medium where you can kind of roll with like what
Yeah.
it's doing a bit more, it works. But in a visual medium, and even to a certain extent in like some more like auditory mediums and everything, I've just never been that like thrilled by this story. Again, I get the message, I get the sincerity, but there is something deep down about it that just really bothers me, and the fact that they just like didn't need to do that. That like again, like with this example, Mickey and Minnie. For those of you who don't know, the plot of this follows Mickey and Minnie are both very financially unstable, but
Yes.
it's Christmas time and they really love each other, so they want to give each other a gift, and they both have like one really
Prized
priceless
possession.
possession
Yeah.
that means a lot to them. But so Minnie thinks, oh, I'm going to get Mickey a harmonica case for his nice golden harmonica, and Mickey thinks, oh, I'm going to get Minnie a necklace or a watch chain,
Yeah, a
for
watch
a very
chain.
nice heirloom
Pocket watch.
pocket watch. And in order to pay for these things, because they just care so much, they end up trading or selling their priceless item to get the accessory for the other item.
Yeah.
But what really bothers me about it is they don't really like need those accessories. So this is just like a story that takes a lot to sell me on in general. Like you kind of have to get their romantic dynamic working really well for me to like understand what this is doing on an emotional level.
Well, that's the thing. In a literary sense, you can be arguably a bit more directly subjective in how
Yeah.
people are feeling and like setting up the romance a little more. This one, we get maybe like 2 or 3 scenes with Mickey and Minnie
Yeah,
like
there's
together.
not much that they're together.
And it seems sweet, but like it's not quite enough for me to buy into it. Like that, you know,
Yeah.
it justifies all of these crazy things happening.
There literally is like one scene and Mickey's like, oh gosh, Minnie, I really want to buy you something. And
Right.
Minnie just says the same thing, and then
Yeah.
they go off on their separate ways.
Yeah, and like the whole thing is like they're moving heaven and earth practically. Like the odds of them actually getting the present are super low, but they go through all of this just
And
so
yeah,
they can.
they sell their most prized
Yeah.
possession, and like the whole moral's like, oh, it's all
It's
about
sweet.
giving.
The
to
sentiment
person
of it
who
is
you
really
love.
sweet, but like it's not as interesting to watch as I want it to be.
And because of that, like paired with the fact that they try and be so much more sincere, or at least focus on the sincerity so much more in this short than any of the other two.
Yeah.
So there's just not much room for comedy, that it becomes kind of just not worse inherently than the other two shorts. Just again, more boring, more forgettable.
Well, they just didn't fill the gap of comedy with like good, compelling drama or something. You know?
There's not much here really to grab onto. It is a very, very basic telling of the Gift of Magi. And
Which has its charms.
yeah, and
you
that's
know.
about it. There's still, like, I don't want to be too hard on this. I think it's really fun.
I still think it's good, yeah.
There's, like, the fireman, like, concert thing is really fun.
Yeah.
Anything with Pete in this is really fun.
I was
and
about to
funny.
say, Pete has a Christmas tree farm, and it's great.
He's so like, dude.
Best
again,
part of the short.
He tries to like con this family practically or guilt them into buying this like 10-foot tree that costs like $1 bajillion, and they have to go on a payment plan to
payment
get
plan.
it. And there's this like shot. It's very funny. The dad's like
Dude.
sweating, about to sign, and Pete's like, "Come on."
Dude, I will say Christmas Tree Farm part of this is really fun.
And I don't know why I always find it kind of funny, but I find it kind of funny that it also plays more directly into the plot, because like it goes on in its comedic bits for Pete to end up like starting a fire and like burning down his lot.
Yeah.
And then that fire directly leads to Mickey needing to be involved in the children's concert.
Right.
And I don't know why I'm like, that seems like kind of impressive, but just
yeah.
from shorts like this, you rarely see that kind of thoughtfulness put into their writing.
I was about to say, it's utilizing the plot beats that came before it. Screenwriting 101.
I was about
Come
to
on.
say, it's mind-blowing in a short like this, just because they're usually so bare bones.
No, that is fun, yeah.
But yeah, this one's fine.
Generally, I think this one's fine to good. It's fun moments are fun, and the rest of it's just okay, I think.
Yeah, it really, on a whole, for the entire film itself, it's a bit of a bummer to end on this note.
Yeah.
But it does lead most directly into, like, the big closing number that they go with.
Yeah, they go with this little, like, medley of Christmas carols or what have you. I don't know if all of them count as carols, but like it's a little like sweet little sentimental medley right at the end with all the characters who were in all the shorts, and it's sweet.
And it wouldn't really work
Yeah.
if you switched out any of these, like their order. I think this is probably the best case scenario for their order.
Yes.
But still, every time I watch this, I'll be like, oh yeah, the Mickey one.
Yeah, it gets progressively more sentimental as they go on, which is good, but it also just loses a bit of its energy along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, as an anthology film, I honestly think it kind of comes like to something greater than the sum of its parts
for
in a
sure.
lot of ways. Because like individually,
They're fine.
I think they're all fine shorts. But like seeing them back to back is really nice. You get a nice sense of like familial happiness and comfort.
It captures a lot
It's
of
great.
different like basic messages of Christmas
Yeah.
really well. The kind that like really are like honed in on in like children's Christmas content and stuff. So it really feels nice and I don't know, warm.
It feels like a nice distillation of everything that a lot of Christmas like kids specials do,
yeah.
and it's nice. It's fun.
I gave the last segment a 3 out of 5.
Whoa, so did I, Mike. I gave every single segment a 3
See,
out
I
of 5.
had a nice descending order for 3.5, 3. Robbie's just like 3.
3.
A 3.
It's a 3.
It's a 3.
It's a 3. Can you guess what I rated the whole anthology film, Mike?
I don't know. You probably gave it a 5 out of 5.
I did say it was greater than the sum of its parts.
Greater than the sum
but
of
I
its
also
parts.
gave it a 3 out of 5.
Well,
it's not that much greater.
I gave it, as it being greater than the sum of its parts, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Very nice.
Great as if I can speak, great as the greatest part of its sum,
Very
if you
nice.
will. But yeah, that is Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. But there's everyone's favorite
Everyone's
cousin that
second
they see
favorite.
only during Christmas. Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas.
Yeah. With almost double the segments.
Yeah, I'm sure
with
that.
Not anywhere near double the runtime.
Yeah, so it's a whole 2 more segments and a whole 2 more minutes. So unless those segments are a minute long each, it's really going to strain all of the segments in runtime.
I mean, to be fair, one segment in this is considerably shorter than the other ones.
Oh yeah, there are a couple that are very vastly different in runtime.
Yeah.
But even if you averaged it out, it's like 13 minutes per segment.
Which is not a lot.
Yeah, which is not a lot for what they're going for. But let's talk about them more. Our first one is Bells on Ice.
Whoa.
Which is quite a way to open a film.
Yeah, it opens with this like ice skating competition where Minnie and Daisy are competing in like the same contest, and they have this strange rivalry that sparks up in a matter of seconds.
I was about to say, so you know, Minnie and Daisy, like canonically best friends for like I don't know, at this point, decades, right?
Yeah.
They're in a contest together, and I kid you not, the reason Daisy starts their little rivalry, and the reason it starts is because in the contest order, just like, the names list that they call people,
Yeah.
Minnie gets called out before Daisy. And Daisy thinks that they're about to call her, but it's not even in that way. Like, that's like a common joke in animation stuff. Like, you can think of even, like, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2.
Where you're, like, someone's describing someone, and
someone.
The wrong person thinks it's them,
But that joke is usually done for, like, the winner. Like, this is, like, the winner of the contest.
Yeah.
They're this person, and, like, this is describing multiple people, so they're both getting excited. This is not that. This is just their position.
I mean, they're both excited to perform.
Start performing for the competition. But it's just absurd. She instantly is like, Donald, do something. Stop her. What? Stop her? And then she skates out onto the ice and starts messing up, like, Minnie's routine.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, I admire the, like, almost silent film approach to the character drama here, but it does not have the setup or the dramatic chops to pull it off at all.
Yeah,
it feels very disingenuous.
Yeah, it makes no sense. None of the characters behave like real people or even animated like children's people would act.
Yeah.
Like, it's just utter insanity. And then when Minnie starts also like being like, oh, she's gonna compete with me, instead of doing like the natural thing, which would be like, Daisy, what the heck are you doing? It becomes like this weird rivalry. And although, like, yeah, there are a lot of fun moments in that rivalry on the ice itself.
Yeah, I think generally the choreography and like the stuff with the hippos and alligators it's generally all right.
The
it's
fun
fun
little Fantasia references and everything, like, that's all fun stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just not like interesting, and it runs into that problem of just like neither of these characters are being at all likable or behaving at all like we know these characters to behave, like doing a plot that we know where is going to go and resolves in an extremely dumb fashion.
Yeah, it's not a very satisfying ending. Like, the whole thing climaxes with Minnie getting hurt on the ice. She falls over and dies at the end of the competition.
Like, oh, I'm such a fool. I killed my best friend. And then she too jumps into the ice, Romeo and Juliet style.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how it is.
I wish that was how it is.
That would be better. It would commit to its bit more.
No, Minnie's like blindfolded. She does a trick. She gets hurt. She falls down. Daisy skates over and she's like, oh no, what have I done? The folly of my ways, etc., etc.
Yeah, and then, but even, like, they end it on the note of being like, oh, they both were being, like, rude to each other, to the point of, like, they have this one thing as it's heating up where they start throwing, like, insults that make no sense at each other.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like just a word salad of insults that have no meaning to the situation we're in. But they have this resolve, and the fact that they learn the lesson that they can make a better show together than they could fighting, which is such a
wasn't the problem at the beginning of
it. It's such
a
disingenuous like conclusion to have, and kind of like it's a moral that I almost like squint my eyes at because like Minnie was having a fine show on her own. Like, yeah, you can say, oh, they can make something really good together.
Well, the thing is, you do make stuff that's better when you're not fighting with someone.
Yeah, when you're not fighting with someone. but Minnie's show seemed like it was going to be really good just by herself. She seems to put a lot of work into it. I'm sure Daisy's would have been the same way.
Yeah.
And to have your moral, your takeaway be like, oh, they should have just been working together to begin with. That's really,
so that they wouldn't fight.
That's really dumb and kind of
weird,
undercuts even the moral that it seems like they should be going for.
Right, I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing is very strange. The choreography is kind of fun, and the animation's probably the best that it looks, the whole movie.
We didn't mention.
It's 3D now.
This one came out in, what was it,
2004?
2004. Which means that lovely thing that debuted in feature films in 1995 was now becoming a little bit more mainstream, expected from Disney, and a little bit lower budget. So that
it's a bit more accessible now.
That 3D animation was slapped onto this,
Yeah.
And it's bad.
All the segments are in 3D now. It doesn't look great.
There's like some good use of 3D in this, like in the entire thing. There's some good use of 3D as a medium in general.
There's some nice-ish camera work, but not really anything of note.
Yeah, but nothing that justifies it being just this ugly. And like this, again, like he was mentioning, this segment is the nicest looking, but that's only just because there's less lighting in it than everything else.
Yeah, because it's set at night, has very clear like contrast for everything moving. It just looks generally a bit better than the other segments, but it still doesn't look great. It looks like most TV animation nowadays.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little like a step under that.
It's not. Yeah, it's not TV anime. It looks like you mentioned last episode recording. It looks like like YouTube animation.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Honestly, and that's not a compliment, unfortunately. Like it's just stilted and kind of ugly and cheap looking, but you know that takes away some of the magic from it. But can you guess from all of this which movie we like better?
Yeah, right. But yeah, Bells on Ice, I gave it a 2 out of 5.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Whoa, that's so crazy.
That is crazy. And yeah, though I will throw out there for this in total, I think this is honestly one of the worst segments in this entire film.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Like,
it just doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make narrative sense or emotional sense, and it's not that fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, like, ultimately, it's one that especially opening the film with this, I was like, oh.
But yeah, the next segment is Christmas Impossible.
Yeah.
Which we have the return of Huey, Dewey, and Louie for our Twice Upon a Christmas. This is their first appearance.
Yeah, they've never appeared in anything else in between these two films. I'm sure DuckTales wasn't running during that time.
I'm just saying, like, this is the first time they pop up in this one specifically.
Yeah,
because they pop up again later.
This one runs into a very similar problem, in my opinion, to Bells on Ice in terms of just, like, its weird characterization. I feel like all of these shorts run into weird characterization problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's really honestly the problem with all of these. Specifically in this one, they just don't really set up the, like, change of heart for Huey, Dewey, and Louie at all.
Yeah, so the plot of this one...
so the ending just comes off as really strange.
Is, like, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are little monsters, selfish beings of pure evil.
Yeah.
And they're destroying Christmas and their entire family bit by bit. And then Scrooge is like, well, boys, if you don't change your ways, you'll be like me, and you'll never get on the nice list.
That is one of the funniest bits in this whole movie, honestly, is that Scrooge chalks up all of his like failures and like sorrow in life to not ever getting on the nice list.
So he never got his bagpipes, and he never got like. So he tells them this. So they're like, "Man, it's Christmas Eve. We don't have time to like turn around our entire lives at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get onto the nice list." So they come up with the plan to sneak into the North Pole. And sneak into Santa's workshop.
They ship themselves to the
Mission Impossible style themselves onto the nice list by writing their names. And, you know, comedy hijinks ensue.
Yeah, you get some fun like slapstick at the North Pole. You get some
You get Santa and his elves.
Yeah, you get Santa and his
fun.
Elves. They're great. They're honestly, quite frankly, the most fun part of this whole movie.
No, honestly. And like it's just, I don't know, Huey, Dewey, and Louie in this are just not likable, though.
I mean, they're fine. I just don't, I never really buy into, like, their whole thing in this one. Like, they have some funny jokes, like, surrounding them, but I never really care about them all that much in this one.
Again, them as characters are just practically inaccessible from the way they are written.
Yeah.
They are just there, like, they have one note, and it's that they're selfish.
Yeah.
And that's literally it. And they use that to some comedy, but they're not even, like, the thing that is used for most of the comedy of the film.
Yeah, it's very strange. so much of it, like, especially with the conclusion that it comes to, because, you know, spoiler alert for Christmas Impossible, they finally get to the nice list, the room where it's kept, and they write something on it and then go home, and then they wake up on Christmas morning and we find out that they wrote Scrooge's name, Scrooge McDuck, their
Mr.
uncle.
McDuck, and he finally
they did
gets
something
his
selfless. Yeah, they did something selfless, and they learned their lesson. Yeah, they learned their lesson for some reason. We don't know why.
We weren't privy to this, but they learned it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I remember the first time I watched this, because I don't think I had seen the whole movie before, but like, I know I think I'd seen like the first two
You
segments.
think you'd see.
Exactly. I'm very certain that I might have seen the first two segments before, but I remember the feeling of like, wait, were we supposed to like anticipate them writing Scrooge's name, because it's like barely set up?
No, yeah, there's nothing there's nothing that gives you any inkling
Yeah.
that they even paid attention to what Scrooge said, other than naughty list bad.
Exactly, yeah.
No toys.
That's all they like regurgitate. Seemingly.
So,
But, like, I
and
don't
even
know.
even the situations that lead to their low point, which is like they absolutely wreck Christmas for every child by just being klutzes. Like they literally don't do anything. They just like accidentally ruin all of Christmas, which does set up a really funny joke that comes back in another segment with like they set up, which I think is impressive that they brought back a joke for multiple segments, but they set up the sleigh crash of, is it 68?
Of 68, yeah.
The sleigh crash of 68. They're like, this is just as bad as the
This
sleigh
is even
crash.
worse than the sleigh crash of 68.
Which is a very, like, I feel like a very Family Guy style joke, but I appreciate it.
Micah's over here praising the most basic, like, comedic screenplay writing.
Right, but, well, that's kind of the level we're at here, you know? But they wreck Christmas, and then they're like, oh, that's
Darn.
too bad.
Well, I mean, I do actually buy like that beat of like, oh, they're sad because they ruined it for like every kid on Christmas, because they do seem to care about like children
I
at
don't-
large,
no, they
but just
don't.
they don't seem
I
to
don't
care
buy
about
it.
like their parents, you know?
Yeah, it's just weird, and the then change of the nice list
Yeah.
plot point just doesn't work. But I will say the elves are very funny.
We've gone on about this way longer than
Yeah,
we
but
needed
there's
to.
a couple things I still want to mention. The elves are very
Yeah.
funny. There's this one bit that I deducted when we first recorded this is stolen from Shrek 2, which also released in the same year. But I didn't check if it released before or after this. But you can just, I just believe it in my jellies.
I see.
So there's this bit where they put on Santa hats in Santa's workshop, and they're like, "This will never work as a disguise." And then all of the elves are instantly like, "Oh, hey, other elf,"
Right.
which is like beat for beat the same joke as when Shrek, Donkey, and Puss in Boots go to the fairy godmother's potion factory, and they're like, "How are we gonna sneak through? What if we just took these uniforms and put them on, even though they don't fit?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "That'll never work." And then they're all like, "Hello, fellow workers."
Dude, Shrek 2 is like the funniest movie of all time, so it's an unfair comparison.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, Christmas Impossible, the writers are
The
hacks. They blatantly stole a joke from Shrek 2.
But yeah, honestly, generally, I think the elf stuff is like the funniest stuff, honestly, in the whole movie.
And Santa's design being as like weird as it
kind of-
is
kind of
makes him
freakish.
funnier.
Kind
And
of
there's,
grotesque.
Like, there's like a fun thing with like one of the toys that's like, "Hey, she," and, like the toy just talks like that the entire time, and that's really funny to me personally. Like any character that just ends everything with "she."
Honestly, everything that's not Huey, Dewey, and Louie is pretty funny in this, and like pretty interesting. Except for Donald's stuff, I guess. He's not a very compelling figure in this one.
Yeah. Oh darn! There's so much I wanted to mention with this. Why is that?
This one is like the most interesting of Twice Upon a Christmas.
Well, I feel like it's especially interesting to talk about. I know there are a lot of parallels between the others in terms of overall shorts, but I feel like this mostly like because the Huey, Dewey, and Louie one is my favorite from Once Upon a Christmas. This one feels like especially egregious in comparison.
yeah.
But I did want to talk about. Darn it! You made me lose what I wanted to talk about, Ravi. There was one other.
We were talking about
detail.
Donald Duck. In
Oh,
this.
right, yes. And in terms of the continued weirdness of his characterization. So, like I mentioned in the first thing, what makes Donald compelling to me most of the time is when we get to see him with Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and you get a lot of sincerity from him, and he's trying his best as like a single father who
Yeah.
struggles. He's their uncle, but he's essentially a single father to them.
I mean, yeah, he's their father figure.
And I love that part. But here, Donald is not like that at all. He is just as selfish as the boys.
Dude, he's so selfish in this one.
And is played as a joke every single time. Like any scene he is in, it's just like he's being just as selfish as the boys.
Yeah.
Bad Donald.
Yeah,
And that's
I don't
just
know.
so-
It's not super funny, and it's not like that insightful or satisfying to like see him change, because he doesn't change. It's just a punchline at the end, like, as well. So
Yeah, so it's just like Donald being annoying.
yeah, it's just
and
him
that's,
being
like,
annoying for no reason.
What? I don't know. It's again, it's not like a big thing, but compared to Once Upon a Christmas, I feel like, ugh. But
Yeah, it's just a shame.
I think this one is overall fine. I gave it a 2.5, I think.
Scrooge gets his bagpipes.
Scrooge
So,
gets his bagpipes.
yeah, honestly, I think if the, like, weird third act turn, like, oh, isn't that so sweet, worked a bit better, I would like it a bit more, but I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5. It's just not very engaging for a majority of it.
Yeah, I definitely
Which is a
lean
shame.
towards a 2 for this.
But it is like one of the better ones, if not the best one, of Twice Upon a Christmas.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is a bit disheartening.
Well, next up we have Christmas Maximus.
Our little musical interlude, almost, of a segment.
It's literally pretty much one song. It's a scene and a song long.
Yeah, we get one scene at the beginning with Max and his new girlfriend Mona. Whoa. And he's coming home for Christmas. R.I.P. Roxanne. But he's coming home with Mona for Christmas to visit his dad.
And he's
celebrate the
he's
holidays.
forgot all of his character arcs from the movies. And he's like, what if my dad sucks and embarrasses me again?
Exactly. Yeah, his whole thing is, oh, my dad's gonna embarrass me in front of my girl, whatever. I don't know. So they sing a whole song.
He sings a song, and essentially in the course of like this 3-minute song, character arcs his way out of his conflict in a really kind of dumb and convoluted way.
It's just kind of like, it doesn't make much sense. Like, the whole thing is what's the name of the song? Make Me Look Good.
Make Me Look Good.
Yeah. So the whole song is Make Me Look Good, and like by the third time the chorus rolls around, he walks out into the snow and he looks back into the house and he sees like Goofy having a great time.
Goofy and Mona getting along really well.
He's goofing off, he's popping some popcorn and whatnot.
And Mona's like, she's not embarrassed, she's having fun.
She's not embarrassed. She's not like, ew, this is weird. He's like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I was a fool all along. But it's just not a very satisfying turnaround.
And it's weird because this song in its different verses has this transition where he's like saying, make me look good as like a plead, like, make me look good, please. Like, don't be your embarrassing self.
Yeah.
And it ends on, you make me look good.
Yes.
Because I am like you, and like you allow me to be my true self around my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which is like a fine thing, but
it's
I think
it's a sweet
it is
takeaway.
kind of notable that in the middle of this we have like one verse where it kind of implies that Max is singing like, you're so terrible of a being.
You're literally such an embarrassment as an existence.
You make me look better.
Exactly.
That's like halfway through his character arc, I think, is what he's singing about. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it is amongst some of the weird plot beats in this one of the weirdest.
Yeah, and like the song just isn't very memorable or good.
No,
I couldn't tell you the melody
boring.
or like the chorus or
It's
anything.
a very boring song.
And yeah, it's the best parts of this are when we see like Mona and Goofy like silently doing things.
Right. No, their hijinks are funny, and honestly that's the only thing carrying me through this, because I'm just like waiting for Max to not be an idiot.
Exactly.
That's really the whole thing.
I understand why writers lean on it so much when it comes to Max and Goofy, but like at this point, it's all we ever see from them is
Max
just, like,
being embarrassed
Max
of Goofy.
is kind of embarrassed of Goofy. Then he learns that maybe Goofy isn't so embarrassing.
Maybe
Max,
being yourself is awesome and not lame.
And that's it for like almost every. There are some exceptions to that, but that's mostly Max's and Goofy's character arcs with each other like every time. And like here distilled into this tiny little song really shows how like kind of tired this bit is.
Yeah, it's just not, I don't know, it's not very satisfying to watch, and again, the song is kind of unmemorable.
One thing that's notable about this, though, is Max's design. He's very goofy looking in this. He's got, like, kind of, like, realistic
Yeah, he's got, like,
hair.
realistic hair. Like, it's all stringy. But he still is, like, a goof.
And
it's very funny.
It's very funny to me, too, because it looks almost exactly like the You Live Like This meme. Like, that design of Max feels like this design.
It's so funny, dude.
And I think that, like, the moment he came onto screen, I was like, oh my gosh.
It's so funny. Yeah, not great, but you know, it could be a lot worse, I guess. It could be completely unenjoyable, like a couple of couple of the remaining segments.
Yeah, I'd give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd still probably give it a 2 out of 5. It's not like egregiously bad or anything, but it's definitely not good by like my measure.
Yeah, no.
But the next segment is Donald's Gift, which is about Donald Duck. More Donald content.
More Donald content.
More Huey, Dewey, and Louie content.
Barely.
They're not the focus of this one. They're just being kind of obnoxious.
Yeah. This is such a weird one. And again, I feel like
I think honestly this is the strangest one of any of them.
But the plot of this, roughly, is that Donald Duck, he's a little bit tired, he's stressed, he wants to just unwind and relax.
Unwind for the holidays.
He can't seem to do it. He's just a little too high strung. And what song keeps playing?
We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
We Wish You a Merry Christmas. People keep singing it. It keeps playing everywhere. He's just tired of it. He just doesn't want to listen to it anymore. So then he ends up begrudgingly going to the mall to do Christmas shopping with his family, even though he's kind of tired and stressed and everything. And then, like, he gets cursed and starts to go insane as We Wish You a Merry Christmas follows him around everywhere to a despicable amount until it's all he can hear from everything. Then he has a psychological break.
It's like
destroys a Christmas little setup thing, like a little display show.
Dude, it's like the Squeaky Boots episode.
Yeah, it's like the Squeaky Boots episode of SpongeBob.
Only Donald didn't con someone into wanting the Squeaky Boots.
Literally. And
he just wanted a peaceful Christmas, and now this has been thrust upon him.
I was about to say, he gets like tortured until he finally can't take it anymore, and then everyone sees him and is like, Donald, you're a monster. You're a terrible person.
You're actually the worst person to ever live.
So then he walks outside, and just like the last like 3 or 4 shorts, he goes and walks in the snow and is sad, and then as he's walking in the snow, he's like, maybe I shouldn't be sad or mad, and maybe the song is good.
Maybe I was just being a big sourpuss around Christmas, and maybe the song is awesome, actually.
Even though, again, it's like to a comedic degree just how much the song is like torturing him. And then he goes and he sings the song, and they're like, oh, Donald's changed.
Donald, he finally understands the true meaning of Christmas.
Which is, don't dislike a Christmas song that you can't escape from, even though it's mythologically chasing you everywhere.
I mean, I think the whole takeaway is supposed to be like, you shouldn't isolate yourself on Christmas. I don't know.
But like he does, okay.
Like the togetherness of family is like meant to be the sweetness of it.
As a young adult, let me throw that out there. I have not been on the working scene very long, but if I'm stressed and I've been working for so long, sometimes, you know, it's healthy, it's good for you to just sit down and not want to engage with Christmas for a bit. Just relax, not worry about shopping or anything, and just like unplug. And poor Donald gets punished by the universe.
He just wants to drink his hot cocoa.
Literally, that's all he wants to sit down and drink hot chocolate, and that's it. He's had a long day. And I think in some ways he should be allowed to do that. You know, this short feels absurdly mean to Donald.
Yeah, the thing is, like, to just not clown on the one aspect of it not really making that much sense. Like, overall, it's just not a very engaging watch. None of its bits are all that funny.
Yeah, the way it plays out its stuff, it feels, again, more mean than funny.
Exactly, it plays it a lot more mean.
That's like, oh, that's so funny.
It's like, oh, that's so, like, bizarre and crazy. That's hilarious. It's more like, why is this happening to this poor man?
You know, when he's getting chased around by the sounds, like, there are better things that have pulled off, like, hearing a sound everywhere being funny. Like, you can't...
Squeaky Boots.
Like, Squeaky Boots are literally like Squeaky Boots. He hears the sound everywhere. That's a really funny episode. And there are a lot of other examples. This isn't, like, a new joke or anything.
Yeah.
And this just doesn't. Like, you just feel sorry for him. And then you get to the point where he has his little, like, psychological break and destroys, like, the Christmas decorations in, like, a horror-esque scene. And, like, I kind of feel bad for him, you know? But instead of it being that way, it hits him with, like, playing this as, like, a joke. Like
Yeah.
the comedic timing of it and everything, or rather the timing of it in general feels very comedic.
It's almost surreal, honestly. Like that segment more than any of the other ones, that moment where the curtain comes up and he's like destroyed all the animatronics. I honestly don't know if it's meant to be funny or
Well,
like
yeah, 'cause
heartbreaking.
he's like choking it out, and then like they have the comedic timing of like the head popping.
It is
off
kind
the
of surreal.
eye
I don't
popping out,
know.
like a couple seconds after, and it's supposed to be like, "Oh, Donald." How could
And
you-
see, I don't know if that's what we're supposed to
I
think.
guarantee
I
that's what, but
genuinely
that's
don't
not
know.
what we have. I'm just like, oh man, poor Donald.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going through. But it runs into the same problem with these shortened run times of then Donald's character changing on a dime.
Yeah, he gets thrown out of the mall and then he's in the snow for like 5 seconds and he's like, oh, well, maybe, maybe Christmas is beautiful or something. I don't know.
Maybe I just shouldn't have been tired ever, and I should only be happy all the time.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. But yeah, I don't know. Not a big fan of Donald's Gift. I gave it a 2 out of 5.
I gave it a 2 out of 5 as well.
Whoa, that's crazy, dude. We only have one segment left.
We have one segment.
Oh my goodness.
It's Mickey's Doggone Christmas.
Doggone Christmas.
That's so crazy. This one is a very simple story.
Honestly, the worst
And
one.
by a very simple
Honestly, the
story,
worst
I
one.
mean a not simple, very convoluted story.
It's not even that convoluted. It just doesn't make any sense.
So picture this. Mickey's setting up for a big Christmas party. He's putting up all his decorations. And then Pluto, he goes crazy. He goes sicko mode. He loses his mind.
Literally goes
And he destroys every bit of Christmas
No,
in the
he's just
entire
just a
house.
bit of a klutz. One
And
time.
Mickey is like, I hate you, and throws him to the doghouse. And then Pluto's like, man, maybe he does hate me. And
She hate me.
She hate me.
Yeah.
And decides to
That's the plot of this one.
leave. And he gets to
He hops a train
He hops a train
to the North Pole.
you know, all those trains to the North Pole.
You know all the
ones
trains that go to the North Pole.
straight from America to the North Pole, the average train. And he ends up in the North Pole, and Santa's reindeer adopt him briefly, and he's all like, oh, sad, and Mickey's like, oh, where's Pluto? Oh. And
And you get all these wonderful, like, fat phobic jokes of the
Yeah.
reindeer.
Oh, they're so funny.
And hilarious, memorable bits that I can definitely remember, but I can't name them all here,
Yeah, they
obviously.
would take too long to name a single funny joke from them.
Oh my gosh. They're all terrible.
There's too many to pick from.
That dude, honestly, the reindeer are so
They're
unfunny.
so bad.
Oh,
Should I go on my soapbox now?
why not?
Robbie?
What better time?
I'll go on my reindeer soapbox. Okay, so say what you will about the reindeers. Call them unfunny. Call them fat-phobic. Say what you will. It's all true. The allegations,
Allegations
are
are true.
But beyond that, the reindeer infuriate me because Disney, on a whole, as a company, say what you will about them, they like to stick with their design principles. They're like quality animation tactics. They literally wrote the book that like most people reference
For
what makes like good
for
animation,
how characters
good
should
animation.
move and how they should be structured in relativity,
Yeah, and for some reason we have all of Santa's reindeers. They're just like Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Blixen.
Vixen.
Vixen.
Dude. What?
I don't know, man. I don't know these reindeer. But Donner. All of these reindeer look pretty similar. They have a kind of realistic almost look. Their eyes are smaller. They're separated.
They have
by
kind of
their
squarish
nose.
faces.
They kind of have a more realistic, obviously still cartoony build, but like it's distinct. And even the weird fat phobic one still follows those
the
design
same principles.
But for some reason, Donner, our main character reindeer, who sucks and is annoying, he looks completely different. Like, he just does not look like he was designed by the same people. His eyes are massive. They touch in the middle like a Sonic character.
Yeah, he looks like he's got like the Garfield thing going on.
His nose
the
is
conjoined
way
eyes.
more flat than everyone else's. He even has a different, like, structural build. And I think you mentioned this last time we talked about it, that, like, oh yeah, he's supposed to be like the comedic one.
He's supposed to be the
different,
funny one,
which
yeah.
is like fine. Make him look slightly different, but like don't break design principles. Like it just drives.
Give him like a silly hat or something.
Yeah, like
if
it
you
just
want to distinguish
drives
him.
me. Like make him smaller, do whatever you want. Just he does not look like he's from the same movie,
Right.
and it drove me insane the entire time. And of course, he's not even that funny.
No.
He's like his like one joke is like Murray Christmas because he names the dog
his
Murray.
whole thing is like he's doing like fun like Christmas puns, fun quote unquote.
Quote, yeah,
Christmas
very
puns.
quote unquote. And it just sucks, and it annoys me to no end that Murray,
It's
or
such
not
a
Murray, Donner just looks completely different.
It's such a sour note to end the movie on.
Yeah, it feels like such a like a kind of a bad animation mistake to make it into, you know, these are Disney TV, like this is Disney Television Studios. They have a lower budget. They do not have the same standards. Clearly, people make fun of a lot of the like direct to DVD sequels for some weird animation things. But I can't even think of another moment that's just this like weirdly egregious in terms of just breaking immersion through design.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really happen any of the other times. You could argue the other reindeer kind of do that in relativity to all the other stuff, but like it's very strange that like even within the kind of strange looking reindeer, there's one that's even more strange in the context of the movie.
But that's my soapbox about the animation. On top of that, this is just not good.
It's just not fun to watch. It's the same thing that like kind of plagues all the segments in this one. It's just, where it's just not very fun to watch the drama unfold.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that you could be thinking to yourself, you listener at home or in the car,
the skeptic listener,
wherever you're listening to this, you could be like, oh, that's not fair. You're giving all of this love to Once Upon a Christmas, but their segments have 20 minutes, and these segments have like 11 minutes.
You can write a good story in 11 minutes.
You can write a good story in 11 minutes. In fact, there's a story that's very similar to this in an 11-minute episode of a thing we've already mentioned, a reference to SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
Now, of course, SpongeBob has the benefit of having a lot of like cultural and show context to work behind it.
Yes.
But relatively speaking, all of their episodes act as standalone films. You could watch an individual episode, almost any of them, and it's its own thing.
Yes.
And there's an episode where SpongeBob gets mad at Gary, and Gary runs away.
Wow.
And then,
rather famous episode of SpongeBob.
Rather famous episode. And then they do these genius things by like having interesting plot moments. Like Gary's B plot is really funny and exciting.
Right.
And SpongeBob has a lot of funny bits while he's sad looking for
right.
Gary. The stuff with like
Mopey SpongeBob is always funny.
And the stuff with like Patrick at the store when they're hanging up the posters. Like it stays consistently engaging, consistently funny, and the emotional core still works pretty well. It's not my favorite episode of SpongeBob by any means. I think the story structure in general is really hard to pull off in a good way.
Yeah.
Character gets mad at other character, and instead of like instead of working out any of their issues, the characters just separate to where then they can come together again in the climax. It always feels a little lazy, even when something like Phineas and Ferb does it.
Yeah.
But at least they have a good song. They have Come Home Perry.
Come Home Perry.
That's a great song. So like to see both of these instances, because Phineas and Ferb is the same way. It's half episodes in a 25-minute slot.
Yeah.
Both of these are around the same runtime as this short. And this short is just abysmal in writing in comparison.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't fully buy like Mickey's like blowing up at Pluto, like him being that upset. And then, like, he seems to be sad about it, like, right away. Yeah. And then it just gets, like, where we're just waiting for Pluto to come back so they can be reunited, but then it keeps cutting to, like, the really annoying B-plot with Pluto.
Yeah, and what's weird about that quote-unquote B-plot is, like, take Gary, he runs away and he finds at first what he thinks is a better life.
A haven, yeah.
But then learns, like, through comedic instances why it's not.
Yeah.
And, like, there's no thing like that for Pluto.
Yeah, it just seems like he gets homesick after a little while.
He's there instantly, and just like Mickey instantly regrets getting mad, Pluto like instantly regrets running away.
Yeah.
And that's like it. They both get mad, Pluto leaves, they're like, oh,
it's just really unsatisfying.
And then they come back together at the end in like a weird convoluted way with Santa. Like there's it just doesn't make any sense. It's not justifiable or believable. It isn't even believable from the very moment that Pluto just like runs away to the North Pole for some reason.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't like it. I don't like the weird jokes. I don't like Mickey being mean and like me having to wait for them to get back together. It's really lame.
Yeah, and what a weird sandwich to end this on. I think honestly the two best segments of this. Oh man, what even would be the? I don't know, man. I think Christmas Impossible is just the best segment of them.
Christmas Impossible.
I was about to say Christmas Impossible and Donald's Gift were like the best, and it was this weird sandwich with Christmas Maximus in the middle. But like Donald's Gift is not that good.
Honestly, if I had to watch like any of these again, it would be Christmas Impossible and Christmas Maximus, just because those are the two most palatable.
But man, Mickey's Doggone Christmas is just like really bad, and Bells on Ice is the same way. Like they're just bad. I think this one's honestly a little worse. So like, what a bad way to start and end your film.
Yeah. Honestly, the middle stuff is the best.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, as an anthology, it doesn't feel as cohesive, it doesn't feel as heartwarming.
None of it captures the feeling of Christmas for me. And again, it's not like we're like, oh, this one was made now, so it's bad now because we're no longer kids. This was also when we were kids.
Yeah, it was made like 5 years after.
We watched it when we were young.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
It's just not, it's not very fun. It's not very funny. It's not super heartwarming or insightful. It's just boring most of the time.
There's some funny bits, some interesting uses of the concepts or camera or anything.
Yeah.
But it's few and far between.
Yeah, it's a shame. I ended up giving the short Mickey's Doggone Christmas a 2 out of 5, and also
I did a 1.5.
I also gave Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas a 2 out of 5.
I gave Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, those are the films. Those are the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we should get into some of the other stuff we watched.
Yeah, let's do it. Alright, so for those of you who are new to the podcast or have just never listened this far, this is a fun little segment we do at the end where we talk about all of the films that we've seen in between our episodes. We give very brief thoughts, opinions, and ratings. And yeah, we just have, we goof, we have fun.
We have a good time.
We hang out.
Who'd have thought?
We have fun here. This time we're going from the 20th forward.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
November 20th, 2023.
To December 4th, 5th?
Whatever today is. The 5th.
The 5th? Yeah, what's up with that? Time is an illusion lately. But yeah, I think the first thing to start us off, and I have on the 22nd, The Last Emperor.
Yeah, you watched it for the first time?
I watched it for the very first time. I've owned it for a while. I own the Criterion. I actually watched this in the car, though.
Flex your wealth on us, why not?
As part of a road trip we were going on. And it's interesting. I'm a big fan of, like, very avant-garde, big, long, like, historical biopics like this. There are several There are several that I very, very much like. But this one isn't, like, fully my cup of tea. I don't think it sells me on, like, everything. Mainly because, like, the first, like, 40 minutes feel like nothing is happening at all. And that can be kind of annoying, but really outside of that, it's good. It's got amazing like set design and costumes and fantastic performances and a really cool emotional core.
I mean, did it not win Best Picture?
It did. I think it won like 5 Oscars or something. So yeah, it's still a really solid movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Fair enough. On the 23rd, we sat down and we watched A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, which is a gosh darn classic.
A classic, exactly.
Yeah, it's still just as good as ever. I think it's fun.
It's not quite, Charlie Brown Christmas or anything, but I don't know how many people would make that argument.
I don't know. I think Charlie Brown Christmas is like the best one.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. But they're all good.
But yeah, I listened to the jazz soundtrack a little bit before we watched this, and I was like, oh man, I love it so much.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
But I didn't rate it because it was a short.
Neither did I.
Then on the 24th, I watched Shiva Baby for the first time.
Hey.
And that was interesting. I had watched Bottoms, which is by the same director.
Yes.
Emma, oh man.
Seligman,
maybe?
I believe so.
And I was very interested to see what is widely like a better received movie from her. Especially being that I really like Rachel Sennett a lot.
Yes.
And this was really, really good. This affected me like emotionally in a way that not many films do. I was super like on edge. I was a mess while I watched this. My heart rate was elevated. It was great. I think it does a really fantastic job through its editing and its performances and its writing of creating this great sense of social anxiety. There's a ton of really funny bits, but there's also a ton of really like interesting dramatic ones and gross moments, and I think it's like a great film.
Dude, I'm so excited with how much I loved Bottoms. Like, I can't wait to see it, honestly.
Honestly, it's like, for some reason, leagues better production-wise than Bottoms.
That doesn't
I still really like Bottoms, but
Dude,
this is like...
Bottoms is a mess of a film, quite frankly.
It is a mess of a film. But I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really loved it.
There you go. On the 25th, I watched a little film called Fingernails. It's an Apple TV Plus original with Jessie Buckley and Riz Ahmed, and also Jeremy Allen White, the bear guy.
The bear guy.
The bear guy.
The bear.
But yeah, it's called Fingernails. I liked it. Generally, it's like weird sci-fi premise, a bit too safe, and it probably needed a few more drafts. But, like, you know, with a cast as good as, like, the three of them, I wasn't not going to like it unless it was just abysmal. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. I think it's fun. I think if you like near future or grounded sci-fi, you'll probably like it. I don't know. It's a bit of a disappointment, but it's still fun. I liked it. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. On the 25th, I watched Eyes Wide Shut for the first time.
What?
One of the at this point few Kubrick films I haven't seen. I've seen most of his work now. Which
You've seen more Kubrick than I have. What's going on there? I'm the Kubrick guy.
Well, sorry, Robbie. After Eyes Wide Shut, I'm
the Kubrick.
This is the first film from him that I think I've been like 100% down for. Besides, like The Shining, like this film is so. It's doing something that's so up my alley in terms of writing and like vibe and feel and atmosphere. The performances are fantastic. It's so uneasy and interesting and consistently like engaging with how the mystery plays out that it's just awesome. And there are so many like all-time moments, scenes, and lines in this that I couldn't even say them all. This is like genuinely a fantastic film. And I was blown away front to back. Dude,
the aesthetics of Eyes Wide Shut and like the fact that I have loved late career Kubrick so much, I'm like so excited to see it. I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff for it and it looks amazing.
It's so good. And, dude, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in this are fantastic. It's a great film.
Two very scary actors.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Whoa. Who'da thunk it?
Craziest ending scene of all time, by the way. What a way to end a movie.
After that, we sat down and watched Enchanted.
Yeah, together.
This was my first time seeing it.
This was my second time seeing it.
And they turned Amy Adams into a marketable plushie or something.
It's literally. And it's beautiful. And Disney is like giving me slop and I'm eating it with a spoon.
Dude, Enchanted, I wish I vibed with it a little more because like in premise, like from a meta angle, it's really charming and like a kind of a fun, like tongue-in-cheek commentary on Disney's output up to that point, which is like the most basic thing I can say about it.
I think that falls a little flat.
Yeah, that
in terms
I
of,
just
like,
wasn't. I wasn't as engaged as I wanted to be. That's not a really
strong thing about it, especially being that it's Disney themselves making it.
Yeah,
but that's not really why I like it. I like it because I think it's pretty funny and pretty engaging.
Yeah.
I think there are genuinely some really funny performances in this, especially from James Marsden and
Timothy Spall. Yeah, I think Patrick Dempsey's pretty fun too.
Patrick Dempsey is fun. Amy Adams is really
those four like main leads are all really fun, and that's honestly what carries me through it.
Yeah, they're delivering fun comedic lines. There's even some like funny like physical comedy with the little chipmunk guy, which I was not expecting. And like I don't know, it's a fun movie. It's not my favorite thing, but the songs are good, and I have a fun time.
Yeah, I think actually the musical numbers are some of the most like cinematically energetic things here, and probably a big reason I would come back to it if I ever do in the future. But yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I did like it. but I just wish I got into it a little bit more.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
James Marsden was perfectly cast, by the way.
Literally.
He's great.
Also on the 25th, I watched Persona for the first time.
Persona.
That is Ingmar Bergman's Persona. I'm a big Bergman man myself.
A big Bergman
and
himself.
this was like, this is like the big Bergman film, and I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's like many people consider that his masterpiece.
And maybe, it might be his masterpiece. Just throwing that, is this a new thought? I'm just throwing that out there.
Mike is like Persona, best Bergman film? Question mark?
Maybe, I don't know. But no, it's really like it's simultaneously what I was expecting, but like way more than what I was expecting. It pulls off its tone and its more like experimental elements really well. I think it's fascinating, scary, pretty like touching and like emotional and very human. And I don't know, it's interesting. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got a nice clean 83-minute runtime.
Ooh, that is nice.
It's really solid. There's like I don't have any issues with this film. I'd say it's like a little sad because it does. I saw somebody point this out and I kind of agree that it kind of peaks in like the first part of the film that never quite hits those like highs in terms of its experimental filmmaking.
Dude, I watched like a couple of the scenes over your shoulder during this and I was like, that looks crazy.
It is fantastic. It is brilliant. It is beautiful. And yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Well, while Micah was, covering major blind spots in like the most critically acclaimed films of all time, I watched Mothra vs. Godzilla, which, you know what? Toho Studios has put out nothing but bangers so far, so I can't even complain.
I was like, it's comparable to Eyes Wide Shut and Persona.
It is.
It's right up there.
Mothra vs. Godzilla is like probably the zaniest one in terms of like lore and monsters. Like Mothra and her little like larva things are crazy. I love the final battle a lot. Honestly, all of the action is pretty compelling. And like seeing the more zany setting with like the weird fairies that like guard and worship Mothra, it was cool. Like it's fun. The fights are fun. The characters are fun. I had a great time. I had no complaints here, dude. Mothra vs. Godzilla, 3 out of 5.
I like the little moth babies.
Dude, they're so freaking ugly. they're just like spraying silk at everything the whole time.
Well, then what did you watch, Ravi?
This is what I was actually watching while you were watching Persona.
Yeah. So I was watching, again, one of the most well-known, influential, and well-regarded films of probably all time.
Yeah.
And Ravi was watching.
I turned on a film called Grim Cuddy, which is a film that came out last year about a internet meme brought to life by mass hysteria. And I turned it on. I feel like I have to defend why I watched this. I turned it on because the character design like rocks.
And I turned it on as a joke, guys. It was a bit.
Dude, the practical effects on Grim Cuddy himself, like whenever Grim Cuddy is on screen, I'm like, heck yeah, this is the greatest horror film of our generation.
It's just evil Gru with
it's
no
masterful.
nose.
Exactly. He's literally built like Gru from Despicable Me, and it's beautiful. He's a glorious horror creation, and he's stuck in the cinematic equivalent of a Darman video. It has like the emotional and thematic depth and tact of like, I don't know, nothing. I don't know. It's so bad. It's just really poorly written. It's not very well performed. It's really poorly edited. Just everything about it is kind of a flop except for its effects and everything. So I don't know. I enjoyed it to a degree, but it's like just boring enough that it's not even that fun as an ironic watch or anything. So I don't know. Kind of bad. It's weird that it ends with an ASMR outro explaining the lesson we should learn from the movie. But yeah, I give Grim Cuddy a 1 out of 5. It is very bad. Don't watch it.
Then we went out to the theaters for the first time in a while and saw Eli Roth's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Which I was excited for since, I don't know, I think a Thanksgiving like horror film is a cool concept.
I mean, I'm a big enough fan of the slasher subgenre that I'm like, heck yeah. If I get to see a slasher in theaters, it's a win for me.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not that memorable. At this point, I've already been kind of like, oh yeah, Thanksgiving. It's fun. It's got some really like interesting stuff that does happen, but like a lot of the kills, despite being really brutal, are done in such a way that it's not like, oh man, that's like a kill right there. It's more almost absurd.
Oh, I guess I get what you're saying. I was like, I actually appreciated a lot of the staging leading up to the kills and everything.
No, the staging leading up to the kills are good. Like, I think this movie really shines when it gets to have like some of its glorious violent chaos.
Yeah.
Which is hard to pull off. But at the same time, it's just not doing much with its cast or its like premise. And by the time you actually get to any of the cool reveals, the movie's just like, okay, it's time to be over now.
Yeah, I admire it for how gnarly it is and that it manages to hit like so many of the fun tropes of slashers, but in hitting all of those like beats, it almost feels like it's speeding through them sometimes. And it just you end up with kind of like a weirdly paced experience. Like the whole thing feels a bit lopsided or stop and go sometimes.
But there are some genuinely really memorable things in here.
But yeah, I generally like the ensemble. There's some great set pieces. There's some fun kills.
It's pretty funny.
It's a good time, yeah.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's pretty good.
Nice.
I was excited.
On the 27th, I watched Shiny Happy People Duggar Family Secrets.
Oh yeah, I caught like the last 2 episodes of that with you.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is a documentary miniseries. It's like 6 episodes long or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I won't talk too long on this. I have a really hard time like evaluating like docu-series, especially in terms of like a critical mindset towards them.
Yeah.
But this one stayed relatively interesting. It goes off on some like weird little tangents that don't fit narratively very well or go anywhere. But overall, it does a pretty good job of telling what I think is a very important story to be told. So I enjoyed it. I give it a 4 out of 5.
Very cool. I'm going to shout out a couple of small things that I watched. I watched Doctor Who The Star Beast, which is the first of the Disney Plus BBC like crossover things. And it was good. I liked it. I watched it with Luke. Very cool. And then I watched Hannah Waddingham Home for Christmas. It's a little like musical Christmas special that Hannah Waddingham did. It was fun. It was cool. I gave both of those a 3 out of 5. And then what did we watch on the 28th? Or 29th, I guess.
28th? I have it as the 28th.
I have it as the 28th.
Well, then why'd you say the 29th?
I thought it said 29th on yours.
28th.
Oh, shoot.
We rewatched The Hunger Games because my sister really wanted my mom to watch all of the Hunger Games movies. She had only seen the first, so we decided to start from the beginning. Inspired by, of course, the new Hunger Games movie being out.
Yes.
Which we still have not gone and seen.
Songbirds and Snakes. I don't really want to see it.
But yeah, The Hunger Games is a fine movie. I don't have too many thoughts on it.
It's good for the reasons it's good and bad for the reasons it's bad.
Yeah, the casts are sometimes doing cool things. The Lionsgate literally threw every dime they had into this film, so sometimes there's some really fun like production details and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's
fine.
The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I put in my review Battle Royale Hydrogen Bomb versus The Hunger Games Coughing Baby. And that's about how I feel about it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's all right.
Also want to shout out on the 30th, I logged Paprika, and I technically did watch Paprika, technically multiple times.
Oh yeah, I technically did watch it.
While writing and editing and creating a video on Paprika, which is out already on my channel.
Paprika's so cool.
Which we've talked about before, I believe.
Yeah, we did a whole episode
on Paprika. I really like Paprika. I love Satoshi Kon's work. So if you want to hear more about all that, go check out my video. I gave Paprika a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, on the 30th, I went out and watched Godzilla -1, the new Godzilla movie, baby.
Whoa.
It's so good. I love it so much. I'm on my Godzilla arc this year, watching all the Godzilla movies, and this is like honestly the second best one that I've seen behind like the original one. But like, I don't know, it has some great set pieces. The character drama works. It's great seeing like Godzilla back in their original historic context with like, you know, post-World War II Japan, like the kind of political climate, the general morale amongst like all the residents of Japan when the war ended. It was cool. Like it touches on all that stuff in a really like nice way that doesn't feel super like weird or shoehorned in. It feels very organic, and like the catharsis of the ending is really nice. it's just like the best case scenario for a modern Godzilla movie, honestly. And quite frankly, all the American productions should be ashamed that they've even tried to make Godzilla films, because all of the Japanese ones have been better, in my experience. But yeah, go see Godzilla -1 if it sounds interesting to you. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it's one of the best of the year, quite frankly. Do you need to check something?
Just wanted to make sure that the battery light wasn't flashing.
No, it's not flashing.
Okay.
At the moment.
Let's go.
Yeah. If you want to shout that out.
Oh.
Do you want me to?
Oh, I didn't log it. So
okay.
We don't even have to mention it, I guess.
No, we don't have to.
Then on the second, we watched Mickey's Once Upon a Time. Then on the second, we watched Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, which we just talked about.
Yes.
And also on the second, I watched Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Whoa.
Which we watched with somebody we're showing the Harry Potter films to for the first time.
First time.
They were not allowed to watch Harry Potter most of their lives, so it's a little cultural blind spot for them. So it's fun to go through the series again.
Yeah.
I gave Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets a 3.5 out of 5.
We did a whole episode on it. Go listen to it.
Also on the second, we watched Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas.
Yeah.
Then on the third, we went out to the theaters and we watched Napoleon. Ridley Scott's Napoleon.
We've talked about Ridley Scott a lot in 2023.
Ridley Scott is one of my personal favorite directors. And this is a fine film.
Napoleon, yeah. Fine's a good way to describe it, I guess.
I think it's got some really fantastic elements that are just unfortunately balanced out by just some mediocre elements.
Yeah, I don't know. It takes like this kind of broad look at Napoleon's life, and I just wanted to, I don't know. I think it would have been a lot more interesting if they'd have just focused on one particular aspect, or if they are going to try and do something this broad, they needed a lot more runtime.
Yeah, literally, and I know Ridley Scott wanted more runtime, so I don't fault the film for it too much, but it really does feel like you're almost watching like the Spark Notes of the Napoleon movie,
which sucks because like Napoleon, especially in the first little bit, like the opening 45
such
minutes,
an interesting character to watch.
He's very funny, like he's very interesting to watch, and like as a character study, I was getting really excited for it. But then it just kind of gets more spread out, and because slow as it marches on. It's very strange.
As his exploits get bigger, and then he goes through his whole exiles and everything. The plot just doesn't know what to do pacing wise because it just doesn't have the runtime to do everything it needs to.
It just needed to be longer.
Napoleon.
Yeah.
But I love the romance stuff. Vanessa Kirby is fantastic in this.
Yeah.
And I even love a lot of the battle scenes. Like, the more I've thought about this film, there's so much that I like about it. It's just because of its pacing and structure, because it just feels smushed. It's just fine. I don't have any strong feelings for it. I don't dislike it by any means, but I don't absolutely love it by any means either, despite there being like some really smart things in here and how it's written, especially like the ending moment. The end is so cool.
The last shot is really good. I can't argue with it. I don't know. I just had a generally very like flatline experience with Napoleon, which is a real shame because like, I don't know. I wanted Ridley Scott's like bombastic Napoleon War movie to be interesting to me, but I couldn't engage with it the way it is right now. Hopefully a director's cut will remedy this.
Right. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
It's not a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie.
Why are you giving it a bad score?
It's not a bad movie. I can't engage with it. I feel like it would be disingenuous for me to give it a 3. Is the reason I didn't give it 1.
Then also on the 3rd, I watched May December.
Whoa.
Which just recently came out on Netflix, and I really, really, really loved it. If you want to hear more about those thoughts, you can go to my YouTube channel, M. Greyway Films, because I just put a video out about it. Just a short little video talking about some of the things I really loved about it. But the performances are outstanding. Charles Melton especially is like... He's doing something really special here. And in general, I think this is just a really, really interesting film from a writing, direction, and just, I don't know, cultural standpoint. It's a very cool film. One of my favorites of the year so far and of the decade. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. On the 24th, I watched the second Doctor Who special that they just put out called Wild Blue Yonder. It's my favorite Doctor Who thing to ever exist because it has awesome practical effects. And it's only 2 people as the cast. It has a really... it's just like a very tight and funny and good, like Doctor Who thing, more so than any of the other stuff I've seen, show or special or otherwise. Very fun, very good. Go watch it.
But yeah. I think that's all we watched. Go watch a Christmas movie.
My goodness.
We haven't watched too many Christmas movies. I've been super duper busy, like busier than I think I've probably ever been.
Yeah.
So I have not had a ton of time to watch movies.
I've just been hanging out, just kicking back, doing nothing.
But go watch some good movies. If you're okay with what is in May December, I would maybe suggest go watching May December. Definitely check out the content that's in it before turning it on.
Go watch Godzilla -1 while it's still in theaters. It brings down the house every time.
Similarly, if you're okay with the content, check out Paprika.
Yeah.
You can watch my video on both of those things. And yeah, just go watch a good movie.
Yeah. And we hope your December is going well. We apologize for the day delay on this.
Yeah, well,
after we go missing for a week, and now we're a day late. What will the people say?
Yeah, the people are demanding more recently logged. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you hopefully next week.
Hopefully so.